Hello, this is Mr. Atherall. Just want to talk a little bit about Macbeth and some contextual stuff that might be important depending on the question to include in your exam. So first of all, just to go through who was on the throne in England at the time that Macbeth was written and was on in the theatre. So the guy on the throne was a guy called James I. Before James I was Elizabeth I, and Shakespeare was writing times in her era as well. And a lot of the plays he wrote during Elizabeth's time were comedies, and when it came to James I, a lot of the plays were tragedies, and Macbeth being an example of one of the tragedies that he wrote. And they reflected the two kind of eras and the atmosphere of the nation at the time that he was writing. So there was lots more uncertainty and complications around who was the King of England during James I's time on the throne. And James I wasn't a child of Elizabeth I, he was in fact her cousin. And that's important to Macbeth because we get the idea, or we get the plot line in Macbeth where someone who's not the direct descendant of the monarch, in this case King Duncan, becoming the king. And so that's what happens in Macbeth, and that was what was happening in society at the time. And it threw up the kind of complication of not someone who is the direct descendant becoming the next king, and that being something that was up for grabs and that people might argue and battle over. So what was going on in the nation in the Jacobean period was conflict over who was on the throne, and someone who's not the direct son of the queen becoming the king. And similarly in Macbeth, we get that competition and fighting for the throne from someone who's not the direct descendant. And so what was going on in society mirrors what happens in Macbeth. And that is potentially an important point to make, depending on the question that you get. Okay, cheers.
What are you doing?